No, that was not clickbait. I sincerely do believe that Balan, the boy, without a shadow of a doubt, is a masterpiece in Malayalam cinema, nay, Indian cinema as a whole, and is a must watch for everyone, especially the so called cinephiles. This is that rare film that is loudly, proudly, and simultaneously firing on all filmmaking cylinders. The writing, glorious. The acting, immaculate. The filmmaking, top notch. The visuals, I cream my pants. And not just all of that, this is a brutal and unapologetic yet ultimately beautiful film that explores complex and sensitive themes such as victimhood, mental illness, trauma, child safety, the plight of women in India, and all of that through an extremely nuanced lens without painting any of it in strokes of black and white, but more importantly without holding anything back. So much so that when the twist of the film hits, it will hit like a truck. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but this is one of the most disturbing and immoral twists I have seen in any film in a very long time, Indian or global. It is super controversial to say the least, and I have no doubt at least some NGOs are gearing up to have a talk with the writers and filmmakers. Now, I have to say something. I don't mean to sound condescending by any means, but here goes anyway. This film demands a certain kind of patience. And if you're willing to meet it halfway with that level of patience, it will reward you immensely. It's the type of film that is meant for a more mature moviegoer or cinephiles or whatever you want to call yourselves. It's a slow burn that plays out at its own pace, has very little dialogue and meanders a lot, and expect you to be lost in its world and characters. But if you're someone who is looking for quips and spectacle, this ain't it, chief. That being said, if you're willing to summon a tiny amount of patience and keep your phones off for a couple of hours, then I can guarantee you that this will be one of the best cinema experiences you have ever had. This is the Indian Movie Critic, your unapologetically sharp voice in a world full of soft takes. Subscribe to see more, and as always, no spoilers. Let's begin. Plot synopsis. From the filmmaking talent that gave us Manjumal Boys and Avesham comes Balan, the boy, a beautifully melancholic, poignant and a deeply moving portrayal of the experience of a rather guarded and secretive mother and son duo set in Kerala and Karnataka as they fight against demons both on the outside and within themselves to survive the battlefield that is their life. Yeah, that was not exactly what you'd call a proper plot synopsis, but here's the thing. This is one of those films which are more about the characters and their experiences and the overarching themes of the film, primarily one about not being a victim to anyone, rather than a concrete story that unfolds more or less in a slice of life type format. And also because it is one of those films that is experienced firsthand without any knowledge of what to expect next, as the film unravels and unwinds at its own uniquely charming pace, so it's best to keep it vague. Which is not to say the film lacks any structure or proper pacing. In fact, this film is beautifully structured and uniquely paced. This was a film where the writing was a labor of love. It was clearly a film where the writers were allowed to have enough time and leeway to write a story that they wanted to see realized properly on the screen. It is well written to the point that it feels almost like a collection of engaging and compelling short films about the same characters through various points in their life without any distinct chapter titles maybe, but they layer and coalesce with each other, with the first half and the second half almost feeling like separate films with unique vibes but are compelling and engaging in their own right, with the last quarter of the film bringing it all together to be one cohesive whole. Strangely enough, this particular story structure doesn't mean that the film is some fast-paced anthology collection or something. No, it's quite the opposite actually. This film is quite the slow burn, which might put off some of the more casual moviegoers who like to check Instagram every few minutes, but for the rest of us it's more of a treat, as every scene and every sequence gets ample time to breathe and speak for itself, even if it's in complete silence. Speaking of which, this film is not very heavy on the dialogue. In fact, there are entire sequences in the film that go by with little or almost no spoken words whatsoever, but what the film is heavy on are the themes, especially those of victimhood, or more specifically the choice to not be a victim, which the film literally spells out sometime into it. But more importantly, this theme comes into play multiple times in the film over and over, and the characters are given a choice to be the victim or not to be one, which the film explores with shades of nuance that are not often seen in films of its ilk. There are some other obvious themes as well, especially that of mental health and trauma, which is basically the driving force for our protagonist, and then there are the ones about motherhood and the state of women in India, which, can I say this, is one of the finest examples of female empowerment I have seen in an Indian film in a very long time. You have probably seen my other reviews where I take a huge dump on the portrayal of modern feminism in Indian films, but this one is completely different. This is not some misandrist gender war victimhood fantasy come to life. No, this is much more thoughtful, layered, and operates in several shades of grey. The lead, the mother, is not some flawless alpha female smashing the patriarchy. No, she is a damaged, traumatized, and vulnerable woman who will do anything, and I mean anything, not to be a victim again. And you can't help but cheer for her to succeed. So much so that when she does in fact do some truly despicable and disgusting acts, your reaction post the immediate shock is, yes, I understand why she did this. And that is the mark of a truly well written character, to a degree where I doubt why the film is even called Balan, as it's more of her film. This is also helped by the fact that the character of the mother is played beyond perfection, to the point that the actress deserves at least the Kerala State Award. Balan the Boy is a film that is primarily led by Farzana Palathingal as the mother. This is a debut feature film from what I gather, at least as a lead in major production, and what a glorious debut it has been. She shines in moments quiet and loud, and absolutely without a shadow of a doubt sells the character of the mother. Also helps that her performance is very raw and, how do I put it, uncinematic. And there is no shade at the actress, it's just that we are so used to superficially exaggerated or intentionally toned down performances that it feels so fresh to witness some real unrestrained performance for a change. And once more, I don't mean any shade at the actress again, but I have to say, she also looks the part. She is neither distractingly beautiful nor an intentionally chosen ugly actress. She looks like someone you will see around in a neighborhood in Kerala, so it helps with the realism and immersion, weirdly enough. Massive kudos to the titular Balan the Boy as well. Both his younger and older actors who also do a very commendable job. The film more or less rests on these characters, and each of them can individually hold the film on their own thanks to the actors bringing these characters to life. I think a lot of praise needs to be given to the casting directors as well, to have the boldness to take the chance with the new and fresh faces who are clearly up to the mark. Speaking of direction, Chidambaram is clearly a master of his craft and has directed the film with a certain restraint and confidence that has made this film a joy to experience, and I hope to see more from him in the future. Also to be praised are the technical crew responsible for the visuals and the audio. The visuals especially are glorious to behold, with a slight bloom effect and a very palpable color glade that sets it apart from the contemporaries that go for the typical clean cinematic look. And finally, this film is not without its negatives either. Like I said, the film meanders a lot, almost to the level of testing one's patience, and the villains of the film are borderline cartoon characters operating on levels of narcissism and psychopathy that borders on parody. But you know what? The positives I have listed above more or less outweigh all of this. So to bring it all together, do I recommend this film? Obviously yes. As I explained previously, this is a film that seems to be primarily targeted at the cinephile crowd, so it's a no-brainer for them. As for the casual movie goers, if you can summon the patience for it, then I can assure you will have a glorious cinematic experience as well. So what are you waiting for? Off to the next showing of Balan then. Till next time, this is the Indian Movie Critic. Bye.